Well, happy holidays, everyone. This is Greg Dixon, your story whisperer. And if you've been following recently, I've been doing two things. I'm working on an online book that I'm writing live called All My Relations, where I'm collecting various articles on different things, DNA relationships, native views on all my relations, all that kind of thing, and some family stories. And I've also this holiday season, I've been urging people to go when they're visiting with their friends and family and over the holidays to capture their family stories, uh, because sometimes you won't have another chance. Some of the people you spend time with this Christmas will either be incapacitated due to illness, or they will no longer be with us next year. So capture their stories while you still can. So today I'm going to talk about my mother's mother, Mary Elizabeth Christensen, born Neumann. Uh, and my mother was born on a farm in near Drumheller, Alberta. It was a Danish farming community called Dallam. But I'm going to talk a bit about her mother. So here's I just taken myself off of out of the picture here, and there's my mother's family. That's my grandfather Jens P. Christensen on the left, and Mary Elizabeth. She went by Lizzie on the right. That's in her lap is my aunt Dorothy, who is my favorite aunt. I believe that's my mother there, right there next to Dorothy. In the middle in the back is my Uncle Joe, and I talked to about my Uncle Joe recently. He had stories about being in World War II. That's the young girl there is my Aunt Mary, and then my Uncle Harry on the left side. Harry just passed away last year, and the service was in Drumheller in March. Uh, he was the last one. So so that's the thing. So here's my understanding of my grandmother's story, and this is based on things my mother told me. Also, I when I was every time from about age 10 on, my mother sent me to the farm for the summer. That time she was a single mom, so it probably kept me out of trouble when I was older. It probably kept me out of getting in trouble with my friends, and then as a young adult, I went out and helped work on the farm in the summer, mostly with the baling, with hay, and then other things. So so I spent a lot of time, and my grandmother was at that point. Had it in her, I think it was in her 70s. She went in and had a surgical procedure, and I think maybe the anesthetic left her with a kind of dementia. So her memory was not good, and she would tell stories about her life over and over and over and over again. So I heard these stories many times. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go sort of retrace what I understand about her history, her life. So her parents came from Germany. Their family name was Neumann. They came from Germany in the late 1800s, and they moved to Streator, Illinois. It's a little town. I think it's a little south, a little bit west of Chicago. Um, Pretty small. I don't know, maybe 10,000 people. And in that day, the main attraction in the town was a bottle facility, a bottle making facility. At one time, they made a substantial amount of the glass bottles used anywhere in America. I think that's no longer true. There are probably bottle factories everywhere, and that particular one eventually shut down. So, so this is my understanding is when she was maybe a teenager, maybe 18 years old. Um, Seemed to have a pretty good life there in the little town Streator, and this strange man, my grandfather, is from Denmark. He had come over with his brothers to find farmlands and be farmers in North America. His brothers farmed in various parts of America. And my grandfather got a piece of property up in near Drumheller, Alberta. So I think the story, I think, and I wasn't there, but this strange man came and said, "Hi, Lizzie, I want to marry you. We're going to go to Alberta and live on a farm and live in a granary." And I think perhaps none of those words made any sense to her at all. But in that time, she maybe thought, well, somebody's asking, and I probably can't say no. So next thing you know, she's up in the north, up in Alberta, where they're plowing. My grandfather's working with the horse and plow and breaking sod and creating a farm there. And they really did live in a granary. So my grandfather made I guess it's about 16 by 20-foot granary. That was the first thing he built, and that's where they lived for the first years until they built a house. And the story is that my grandmother kept on bugging my grandfather to put a window in because she wanted to see out. And anyway, one day my grandfather's away, and my grandmother's quite resourceful, and she got some tools and cut a window in there. And I think my grandfather was a little bit annoyed because it was no longer usable as a granary. But for the next 50 years or so, it became a garage for the car. So it's still standing, still there. You can see the window my grandmother made. And so that's part of the story. So you see, so the other thing is, I'm not absolutely sure she was totally happy with this life. She taught when I was there, she would tell the stories. Almost all of them was about being a young girl in Streator, Illinois, and things like interesting things that I probably can't really interpret for her, but one was, I guess, one of her cousins liked fast cars, and he was killed in a car accident. So she described that numerous times, and also one day, I guess she was out walking, and she came across two young black girls. And I think my interpretation is that there hadn't been any black people in their town, and these were the first black people she'd come across. And I think she was a bit astounded. She didn't really know what to make of these people who were, she didn't know, but they were, my understanding is there are other girls about her age. So it was kind of a meeting. And anyway, going back, I actually had the opportunity. I've been to Streator twice. Once I volunteered with a complete insane move to drive my brother-in-law's household goods to Chicago, and I stopped in to see some of my relatives in Streator, Illinois. And at that time, my mother's cousin Bill and his wife Sue were there, and I ended up staying with them. And they were living in a house. They'd been in that house for 40 years or something. And you could see about 100 feet away, 200 feet maybe, the house where Bill was born, and Sue was born in that town as well. And many of their adult children were still living in that town, and so they had grandkids there. One of the daughters was living in Chicago and happened to be there visiting, and my grandmother's brother, Frank X. Neumann, was, I think it was 101, and I went to visit him in the retirement home, and he had a bumper sticker on his bed that says, "I've lived through damn near everything." So yeah, so that was pretty interesting. And my mother liked to argue with Frank. They are both characters that like to argue. It was a sport for them, really. And my uncle, well, I guess my great uncle Frank had sued the Catholic Church and won. So that's to give you an idea of how spunky he was. Anyway, so my grandmother, why I think maybe she had regretted this decision to move out of this little town where cozy is she had made my according to my mother, she had made a number of attempts to escape. Like she packed up a suitcase, and it was like 16 miles to walk to Wayne to get to a train station, and she would usually get three-quarters of the way there, and then one of the neighbors would come and say, "Hi, Lizzie, let me give you a ride home," right? And it was just um, and she was back to where she started from. And at their 50th wedding anniversary, she was singing a song, and the line went, 50 years married to the wrong man. At the 60th anniversary, then she was saying 60 years married to the wrong man. And my grandfather, and I have to say, I spent a lot of time working with him, and he was very old school. He was a fabulous farmer, fabulous, really knew soils, really knew a lot of things. But he got along with young children, but other than my cousin Marty, was he really didn't really have much time for most of us. I I didn't really think he even cared about me or anything. One time I was out there when I was a young adult. I had a motorcycle, and I drove to Calgary to visit with my cousins. And as I was heading out the yard, I said, "Well, with any luck, I'll see you on Monday." And my grandfather never said anything to me, but he did say to my uncle Harry that he was really quite concerned for my safety riding this motorcycle. And so, but he would never have said that to me. Um, but that's part of the age, part of that, the dynamics in those days. So, my both grandparents had a long life. My grandfather was born in 1888, and he died in a farming accident in 1983. So he was 84, almost 85 years old, and he was out throwing hay bales, and there was a problem with the hay wagon, and he ended up getting run over by the hay wagon. And one of the stories is my uncle Harry sort of says, "Well, I'll call an ambulance, and can I get you anything?" And he just said, "Oh no, don't bother." And he passed away soon after that. He was afraid of growing old, so that was probably the best thing that could happen to him, is he died with his boots on. It's kind of odd to say for somebody in 94, but that's the way he was. But my grandmother, when you have to keep in mind that she had a kind of dementia at this point, and my uncle said, "Hey, Mom, Dad's dead," and then she was ironing, and she just kept on ironing and said, "Good." So, so I think there's no love lost there at that point. She was my grandmother was really mad because in my grandfather's will he gave everything to the boys, and then then in her will she gave everything to the girls. So it was all all part one and one part of the ongoing saga. I just have to say that the farm is something that I spent a lot of time on, and my cousins and my siblings all, probably nobody spent as much time on there other than my cousin Marty and myself, but we spent a lot of time out on the farm. And I guess my only, and I guess some of this perspective maybe because of my mother as a single mother, she was she was pretty frustrated with her father most of her life. They were a lot alike and head butted and argued about many things. And her story is she fled the church and fled the farm and moved to Vancouver as soon as she was able. I think she was probably 18 years old when she did that. Ended up meeting my father and had a family. So this is anyway. This is my story about what I understand about my grandmother. She was her life was raising the kids, and actually, maybe I'll tell this story too. So my Uncle Joe was the first one born, and she was like about 9 months pregnant, and my grandfather was out with the horse and plowing, working in the fields. And they had this little convention that if Lizzie was going to have the baby, she would go put out a sheet out on the clothesline. And anyway, the contractions started coming very fast, so she panicked a bit and she put up 2 sheets for emphasis. And my grandfather saw, oh, 2 sheets. Lizzie's just doing the laundry, so he ignored it. And anyway, a little while later, there's a neighbor happened to knock on the door, and so this kind of a scream out says, "Go get that fool on the hill and come down because we're having a baby." And so they had Uncle Joe was born on the floor, in the kitchen floor in the farmhouse, and all 5 kids were born in the kitchen in the farmhouse there, and all survived the delivery. So anyway, that's it. That's my grandmother. I wish in some ways she did, when she was 65, she was able to get a pension, and she used her money to actually travel. She went back home and did a bit of traveling when she was 65. Her husband was a bit mad. Well, why do you need that money for? But there we go. Welcome to family life and in the last 100 years. Anyway, so that's a bit of our family story. That's my grandmother's story, and my wishes, and I'm hoping that my spin on this isn't totally true, that they did have some joyful years, and that she had enjoyment in the family, all that kind of thing. I really do. I just know it was hard for her, and my mother really sort of understood how hard it was for her. So that's all I'm going to say for now, and talk to you later. Thank you.